This is the Frat House Sports Show. And now for this week's completely different and humorous perspective on everything sports, here's Frat House Mike and Sidekick.
Hey, we got a great show for you tonight. As Sidekick here is, I'm hosting my first episode of SNL. So I want to welcome everybody to SNL. I'm going to try and keep this flowing real quick, but no, April Fools. This isn't SNL, it's the Frat House Sports Show. Obviously, we're missing somebody here. Frat House Mike is under the weather, as you know, and unfortunately, due to a kind of perfect storm last week, we were not able to continue with our 134th consecutive show. Unfortunately, I was out in St. Louis, and we had the flu bug invade the frat house last week. So now we're starting with episode 134, our first consecutive show. But we're looking forward to going ahead and setting a new record and beating the 133 streak that we previously set. So without further ado, we're going to talk, it's spring. Obviously, I've got my Cardinals on. It's baseball season, so we're going to talk baseball, sponsored by CLW83.com. And we're going to bring in our great friend, Jim Williams. He's the host of the Touch 'em All podcast that can be heard over on CLW83.com. So welcome, Jim. I understand that I saw on Facebook that you're feeling a little under the weather as well.
I'm telling you, as soon as Mike says something, it gets transmitted through the interwebs, and apparently it hits me because I had a little bit of a bug, still have a little bit of something with the tummy lingering. I won't go any more specific than that because we don't want to be a graphic show. But I'm on the mends. I'm feeling better. By the way, you may want to mention you got some guy with a Bernie Perron jersey next to you.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Way to hit it out of the park for us, buddy. Yeah, I'm Uncle Mark is sidekicked this week in our Frat House
and his
April Fools Show. Yeah,
yes,
right. Number one, Bernie
just saying, just trying to help you out. That's all.
Yeah, good looking out, Jim. Nice to have you. Nice to have you.
Good to be here. Lots to talk about in the world of baseball, my friends.
Yes, and speaking of under the weather, we've got Jimmy Rollins and Ryan Sandberg. Apparently, Jimmy's suffering a little flu-like symptoms of his own.
He's sick of Ryan Sandberg, or at least he was in spring training, so it seemed. He was benched for 3 games towards the end of spring training. No official reason was given for, let's not kid ourselves. There's something going on behind the scenes in the clubhouse. The two are not, meeting each other, eye to eye. They're more like this, if you will. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling this is going to fester and become problematic as we get into the regular season, especially if the Phillies tend to dovetail and lose, say, 8 of their first 15 or 10 of their first 25 or so, or win only 10 of their first 25, something like that.
Now, do you think the issue here is possibly maybe, a little bit of a maturity issue with J-Roll, or since this is the first full season under Sandberg, is he trying to, lay the law down?
A little bit of both. Very good question. You are an astute host, I must say. Mike told me to say that to make you feel better. I'm sorry.
Nice.
But seriously, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, Sandberg is trying to show he is the man in charge. He is the leader. But J-Roll, veteran in his mid-30s, he knows his best years are behind him, and he's trying to make something of himself. By the way, completely off topic, congratulations to him and his family. They had a baby daughter on Thursday.
Yep.
Congratulations to them, that being said.
Right, you missed yesterday as a result of that, right? I mean, that wasn't a benching yesterday.
Right.
Well, I think Rollins is, dare I say, ego is letting him get the best of him, and I'll tell you my genuine concern. I think that there's going to be a flare-up during the season. And you know who's going to be in the middle of this between Sandberg and J-Roll? A person who J-Roll had problems with about a decade ago, some guy named Larry Boa. Boa, the bench coach now for the Phillies. That's going to be a fun situation to watch. Translation, the best action for the Phillies in 2014 is probably going to be off the field and behind closed doors.
Wow, not boding well. No. Apparently,
no, it isn't.
Apparently, old Sandy is trying to distinguish who the newborn and who the baseball player are right now, currently.
Kind of reminds me of another Philadelphia team going through some growing pains, and that would be the Eagles, right? Got a new skipper.
Oh, with DeSean Jackson out, which I know you're going to talk about a little bit later on.
A little bit of prima donna stuff going on here in Philadelphia lately.
A little bit.
So, obviously, the season has just started. I think if you go by Frat House Mike, the official season's only about a week old because he doesn't count any of those games down under. But let's get a beginning of the season outlook or your thoughts on the different divisions we've got going right now. Starting off in the NL East, how do you see that?
When I was on a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that of the teams that I think are going to contend for a division championship, I thought the Braves were going to be the shoe-in runaway favorite. Of course, as soon as I say that, they lose two of their starters to Tommy John surgery. They picked up Urban Santana off the waiver wire at the last second. He'll be bubblegum and duct taped in there. I still think the Braves are going to be the team to beat in the National League East. I can't say that the Nationals won't try to contend. They will. It's just, will they respond to first-year manager and first-time manager Matt Williams? That's the question. The Mets are going to be improved. They'll be a third-place team around 500. The Phillies will languish with 90-plus losses in fourth. And the Marlins are going to be dead last yet again. The Marlins, though, and the Mets especially, they're 2 or 3 years away from being contending teams. They're young, they've got good cores. Give them some veteran leadership, give them some time, some tenure, and they can make some hay in the NL East in a couple of years.
Well, I was going to say, with the Marlins, though, just as those guys start getting their rhythm, the Marlins are going to go and fire sale them, aren't they?
That's kind of their MO. You're probably right.
So, all right, let's talk about my favorite division, the NL Central, with, obviously my Cardinals.
Your Cardinals. You own the Cardinals?
I
you
own the Cardinals. They are
you
my
made
team.
the jersey yourself, and you sewed it on, and you put it... No. Your Cardinals are probably have, all joking aside, the best starting rotation in the entire game. That alone makes them shoe-ins to win the division. The real question is going to be who's going to compete for second place. I think it's the Reds that are going to be the second-place team this year. That, despite what happened, the horrible incident at the end of spring training against Kansas City to Aroldis Chapman, where he ended up having to take one right underneath the left eye, had to get surgery done right under his orbital bone. Scary situation. He'll be back by midseason, hopefully. But I think Pittsburgh takes a step back because they lost a couple of key components. I mean, their big ace is Garrett Cole, who's, I believe, going into his second or third year in the league. He'll be good, don't get me wrong, but let's see how the rest of the rotation counteracts with that. The Cubbies will not be the last place team because I think Ryan Braun and those PED using and abusing Milwaukee Brewers will be dead last.
How about it?
A little bit of karma, would you say?
I would say so, yes.
All right, well, let's head out west into the land of the California,
West.
The Hollywood, and,
Yes.
So the people that show up
out west, that's very good.
Yes. Those fake Dodger fans and stuff.
I know. You love the Dodgers, Sidekick. You love the Dodgers.
No.
But the National League West, I'll go right to it. Before I tell you who's going to win the division, I'll give you my surprise team for all of baseball this year. The San Diego Padres. I think they can make a run this year. They've got an interesting mix of good young players and veteran players. Their pitching rotation is pretty decent. They're a streaky team, though. They could win 8 games in a row and then lose 10. So which side of the coin do they stay on? That's what it comes down to.
Well, if they're undressed, I would say that's streaking, right?
Yeah.
That is very streaky. But I think they can get it right this year. I think the Diamondbacks are, again, going to contend for second place with the Padres. But sorry, Sidekick, the Dodgers are going to win the National League West. This, regardless of Clayton Kershaw being out for a month, regardless of Matt Kemp being gone until whenever, who knows with him if he'll even stay healthy for a freaking season. The Rockies and the Giants. Well, the Rockies, I just throw them away back into Denver. They've got nothing going on. And the Giants, I'm sorry, they're imploding before my very eyes. Have you seen Tim Lincecum? He's not the same Tim Lincecum. You know what Tim Lincecum's good for now? Having his stash on Twitter. Look up Lincecum's stash on Twitter. It has its own Twitter.
Nice.
So, I'm sorry. I'm not saying the Giants are going to be in last place, but they don't factor into the West race at all, in my opinion.
All right, well, while we're out west, let's switch over now to the American League.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And how do you see the American League West?
Now, first of all, full disclosure, I have no stake whatsoever, none whatsoever, in any, I just goofed that up, any player or any team whatsoever doing well. I think I might say it like this, it's an improvement over my normal pace. Anyway, in the American League West, okay. We know Robinson Cano in Seattle. Oh, millions and millions of dollars. He's going to make them a better team. Again, give them a couple of years. Oakland, another team that had a situation with a starting pitcher going down to Tommy John surgery. They always find a way to contend. They'll be up at the top. Sorry, Mike, no disrespect to you, my friend. I can't buy the Angels either because I don't know what you're going to get out of Hamilton, and I darn sure don't know what you're going to get out of Albert Pujols. It's Texas's division to lose. Texas wins this division, I think, easily, quite frankly. Prince Fielder is going to pay huge dividends in the Lone Star State, and the Astros will probably lose 97 games as opposed to 100 and whatever. So,
well, now, speaking of the Rangers and Fielder, is this going to be enough to get the Rangers a championship, maybe?
I'm not going that far because Prince Fielder is, and I know we have a small sample size to base it on, historically a choke artist in the postseason. What has he done in his career in Detroit in the postseason? Zip, zilch, nada. Yes, his teams have gone to a World Series and to a League Championship Series, but he has not been the factor. It's been Miguel Cabrera. More on him in just a moment.
Well, and that's kind of the Rangers' MO as well. They do great all season and then playoffs and choke.
Not unlike the Oakland Athletics the last couple of years. They're a team built for the regular season. The postseason, not so much.
All right. Well, let's take a look at the Central now.
Let's do that. And let me tell you right now, Detroit will not factor into, they will quasi-factor into the playoff race, but I don't think they get in this year. I'm going to give full credit to my touch-em-all contributor and friend, Jason Block, for this. He said in our prediction podcast, available at CLW83.com, cheap plug, smirk, there you go, that Miguel Cabrera is going to be hurt this year. He's going to be playing hurt, and he's not going to be playing at 100%. I let that fester around in my brain for a few days, and the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. You think about the last couple of years to the end of the season, Cabrera has almost always been on the DL with either a leg injury or a back injury. He can't sustain for 162. I think it finally comes back to bite him in the backside this year. I don't think he stays healthy. I think he goes and misses some significant time mid-season on the DL. That being said, let's take a look at the rest of the division. Cleveland, they bought into Terry Francona. I think they win this division. Kansas City, Mike's sexy pick from last year, if you remember. I think they can be a wild card team. I believe in this team. A good young veteran mix there. I think they'll do well. The White Sox will improve. The Twins will be absolute Freudian show. How do you say it? I can't say the word. They'll be crap is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Schadenfreude, is that it? I don't even know.
There you go. All right, and back to the East.
The American League East. Boston strong again. I think the Red Sox they're an amazing franchise in that they lose a guy like Jacoby Ellsbury, but they plug in enough parts to make it work this season. The rotation's strong. The starting nine is strong. John Farrell's a great manager. The Red Sox are going to win this division. Now, the question again is, who's going to come and compete second, third, fourth place? I want to say the Yankees because Jeter needs to ride off on that white pony into the sunset, but I can't say that. I'm not sure. The Rays are going to be always there challenging. Joe Madden is an evil genius, and he will exploit instant replay for the end of time, and I love that about him. You have to also look at the Baltimore Orioles, who I think are going to take a step back. They picked up Ubaldo Jimenez. I don't think he does anything. He hasn't done much of anything since that one magical season in Colorado. And Chris Davis, I think his power production goes down with Nelson Cruz being added in. And then there are the Toronto Blue Jays, who are destined for last place. Jose Reyes already on the DL at the start of the season. R.A. Dickey can't do it in the American League for whatever reason. He's not the same pitcher he was since he left the Mets. Right. I think the Blue Jays are sadly destined for last place, but Boston wins the AL East, in my opinion. I think they're the team to beat.
All right, good stuff. Now we're going to switch to one of Frat House Mike's favorite subjects.
Oh, yes.
Because I know you, our technical director Brandon, and I are big fans of this. But this weekend, Sunday night, we got WrestleMania 30 coming up. So in the main event at WrestleMania 30, we've got the Viper Randy Orton, the Animal Batista, and the winner of the match between Triple H and Daniel Bryan. So how do you see this one coming down?
May I say it in a word? Yes. 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 Again, another podcast we have at CLW 83 called the North American Wrestling Connection for months. We have chronicled the Daniel Bryan Yes movement. It will hit a crescendo at WrestleMania. He will beat Triple H within an inch of his life. He will get in the triple threat. He will win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship in front of 65 to 70,000 crazy pigeons, including CLW 83 head honcho Carl Chenier, lucky son of a gun, who will be at the Superdome for Mania.
Now, are we gonna see Daniel Bryan now have a big push post WrestleMania?
Of course. He is, next to John Cena, in my humble opinion, the big draw. I mean, they pushed him. He is money. He's a license to print money. Look at the different shirts that they put out for him.
Oh, sure.
Look at how the fan reaction is. The fan reaction bleeds into other matches when you hear the yes, yes, yes. It's a cash cow. They have to push him.
Right.
And I think he stays with the belt for a few months.
All right. Well, that's good stuff. Because I kind of like Daniel Bryan, so.
Oh, and my eyes are glazing over.
I know, he's like, what?
A lot of alcohol.
He's like
a lot of alcohol this weekend.
Yeah, a lot of alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, in another big match, we have Undertaker with his streak, 21-0, against former UFC heavyweight champion Brock Lesnar. Do we see the streak go down this year?
Brock smash. No, the streak will live. I'm tempted to say forever, but the way this has been built up, Undertaker's had all the momentum on Raw until this past week. It's a foregone conclusion. Taker will win. He will summon whatever powers he can and win, and the streak will live on for another year.
All right, and biggest surprise this weekend at WrestleMania. Rumor mill on the internet is that we may see CM Punk back, and Stone Cold Steve Austin has alluded to that. Or do we potentially see former TNA wrestler, the Icon Sting, and possibly a setup for next year's WrestleMania? Because
I've heard about the Sting setup. I'm intrigued by that. He wants one more match. He might get that match at 31. I don't think we're going to see Punk back. I think you never say in this business he's gone forever, because he comes back for a one-off deal like The Rock has done and how Batista has done, but he's gone for the foreseeable future. I don't see him appearing to shock the masses at WrestleMania. I think the Sting thing, you might see a setup for that at the end of the Taker match. You never know. But that's what's great about WrestleMania. 4 hours of excitement, as long as the network proxies can handle it on the WWE network.
And as long as the alcohol holds out. Yeah.
Well, I don't drink, but to those who do, hell yeah, indeed.
Well, thanks for coming on, Jim. I know you're feeling a little under the weather, so I appreciate you being a professional, unlike Mike, and coming in on the show when you're sick.
Oh, that ain't right.
You thought I was going to get you. I'm actually getting the host.
There you go. My pleasure, guys. And Mike, feel better. Mark, thanks a lot. And Sidekick, as always, whatever.
Whatever.
Yep. Whatever.
Whatever. Thanks, guys.
All right. We want to thank Jim Williams for coming on the show to talk a little baseball and a little WrestleMania with us. And we also want to thank CLW83.com for sponsoring our baseball and WrestleMania segment. With that, we're now going to move on to our top stories of, I guess, the last 2 weeks.
Right.
Starting off with the NFL, it was announced last Friday that the Philadelphia Eagles had parted ways and pulled a DeSean Jackson, dropping the pass on the 2-yard line, and dropped DeSean Jackson and his gang ties.
Okay, you're killing me with this.
Exactly.
Wow.
We found out that he was then picked up by NFC East contender, the Washington Redskins, for a cool 3-year, $24 million contract. 16 million of that is guaranteed money. Did Chip Kelly cut the cancer out, or are the Eagles going to have to pay for the next 3 years by seeing DeSean Jackson back?
Well, that's a great question. And let's be honest, the worst thing you really wanted to do is see this guy go right to your own division. So nobody's done with DeSean Jackson. We're going to see this guy 2 times a year, and maybe more if they see him in postseason. Terrible year for Washington last year, obviously 3-13. They can only look up. They do not have a draft pick coming up because of the RG3 deal going back 2 years ago. So for them, this looks like a logical right move. Snyder has done this before, picking up, for instance, Albert Hainsworth. They don't have a problem with the bad boy mentality, the bad boy philosophy. They think this can work. How does it play for the Eagles? I'll be honest with you. I don't know what to believe about the DeSean thing, but frankly, their silence as an organization on the heels of this story, which paints the man as a thug and a gang, to me speaks volumes in terms of ethic. And I really think, listen, DeSean Jackson, there was no reason for him to leave, in my opinion. The fact they let him go, we didn't get anything for it. As a fan, I'm annoyed, and I think every Philadelphia fan should be. Is it going to bite Chip in the ass? Maybe. Chip, I think, wants to establish this is how it's going to be. Everybody's got to buy in. No room for divas. What do you think?
I'm surprised that they let him out
for nothing.
Not getting nothing, just
for nothing.
Walk away. Out released him. Flat out released him, which makes me wonder what some of this backstory is with going on, that they would be willing to just say, hey, you know what, we're going to release you, have a great career. We don't need you anymore.
Well, you're right. And see, that's the thing. I wonder if it was a little convenience there in, we're not really going to say anything. We're going to let this happen. And by the way, it just so happens we're going to drop this story on NJ.com, and we're going to kind of let that speak for us. And again, I just think there's an ethical window here that they've kind of flown through. I think somebody should speak to, here's the real reason why we did it. The guy wasn't working for us. No hard feelings, and we had nothing to do with the story. Right now, it looks kind of the other way.
Well, and as a follow-up to that, surprise, surprise, somebody did speak up.
How about Richard Sherman?
Our good friend Richard Sherman out in Seattle, he had a lot to say about his childhood friend, DeSean Jackson.
Absolutely.
And one Riley Cooper.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, there was some allusion there to Jim Irsay, the owner right there of Indianapolis. And so, there are a lot of questions, a lot more questions than answers. And again, this is just unfortunately bad color. Bad color.
Right. So, on to another wacky story that involves the Philadelphia Eagles again.
Yeah, right. We can't get away.
The joke that are the New York Jets released Mark Sanchez and turned around and signed free agent Michael Vick. And there was some rumor that they were possibly looking to trade DeSean Jackson to the Jets.
Which actually could have worked if you think about it, right.
Exactly. Now, the Jets picked up Michael Vick's services for 1 year for $5 million. But not to be outdone, the Eagles, in turn, signed Mark Sanchez to a 1 year contract, he will compete with Matt Barkley for the backup quarterback spot.
Right.
I goofed.
Yeah, maybe.
So,
yeah, maybe true.
Who got the better end of the deal on this one?
Well, yeah, that's a real good question.
Anything getting through to you, son?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Boy, I said boy. On the face of it, I guess I would say Michael Vick, just in terms of, I guess, his caliber and what he brings for that squad. I'm not sure. Look, both these guys are gonna supposedly go into camp and they're gonna play for a starting position. Is that really gonna happen? I don't know. Could it happen? Anything's possible. We know the NFL. Anything is possible. On the face of it, I would say at this point, yeah, maybe Michael Vick to the Jets actually works out a little better for that squad. Sanchez, I think he's capable. Maybe he wasn't done exactly right by New York. I'm not going to defend him exactly, but I think the man has more skill maybe than he was given credit for. Let's see what happens in Philly. If he falls in right with Chip Kelly, again, anything's possible.
Right, and see, that's kind of where my thought process was with it, is you've got Michael Vick, who's an injury risk.
Yeah.
Who's going to the Jets. Obviously, they signed him to a 1 year contract.
Right.
But then you've got Mark Sanchez, who kind of was up and down in New York. May not have gotten the best coaching and that, but yet now he missed last season with an injury.
Well, right.
Coming back,
so he can get banged up as well. I agree. It's a really funny deal because it's sort of like a trade that wasn't a trade, but really is a trade when you wash it all out. I mean, It's fun. It's amazing how they've taken a bus to a train to a taxi to get across the street. I don't know why they did what they did, but it's been interesting.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Who has time?
Who does have time? I'm not sure. Woody has time in New York, I guess.
And now on to another.
Yeah.
There's just wacky stories. This shouldn't be top stories. It should be wacky stories.
Yeah, right.
It's
our April Frat House Fools Show. So that's
apparently Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban has grown tired of picking on the NBA and retired Commissioner David Stern, and has now decided he's going to pick on the NFL by saying, "quote." I think the NFL is 10 years away from an implosion. When pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. And they're getting hoggy. When you try to take it too far, people turn the other way. I'm telling you, when you got a good thing and you get greedy, it always, 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 always turns against you.
Always.
He would then go on to expand on his comments with a 1,500-word Facebook post. Is the NFL getting too hoggy?
Yeah, well, that remains the question. He does make a couple of pretty sound points in terms of it, and one that I kind of buy into is the potential of overexposing the league. I mean, we're talking about Thursday games. We're talking about maybe adding Saturday games with some regularity. Of course, we know Commish would like to expand to have a couple more teams ultimately in the league. They'd like to expand for playoff format. So I kind of buy into Cuban's argument that, you know what, when you start to put it out there all the time, you will see some natural attrition. I'm a niche guy. Obviously, I'm wearing a hockey jersey. There's 82 games in a hockey season. That's a lot. And part of the reason maybe why fan base of hockey isn't the same as the fan base of football is because in football, you have a good solid weekend and you take a break. You reconnoiter and then you come back next week and you have at it again. When you have it on every night, when you see it every night, it's easy to say, you know what, that game doesn't really matter. I don't know. So I kind of buy into some of what he's saying there in terms of, yeah, maybe it is a little too much too soon.
Yeah, because, the Super Bowl no more than it ends, and we're talking about when's the draft start.
Absolutely right. And that's coming up 2 weeks, right? Couple weeks away.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And another thing that he alluded to was fantasy football, and that fantasy football may be helping undo the NFL.
Yeah.
And you know how fanatical we are around here about fantasy football.
Rabid. We are rabid.
So,
yeah, we are rabid.
I don't know.
And, 10 years isn't really that long a time. I mean, I tend to kind of agree.
Another thing Mark Cuban was giving the league a hard time about was selling the Thursday package to CBS while insisting upon simulcasting it on NFL Network.
Yeah,
right.
there you go.
So in other words, they're double dipping on the cash.
Sure.
Right. Precisely right.
Along with what Mark said about the oversaturation.
Yeah, and then you add the Saturday games and
the man does
all
know
that in.
business. Good point. I mean, the man does know business, so he's going to see it from that side too.
Sure. And while we're talking about getting hoggy, I'm sorry, we're going to talk about Johnny Douchebag.
There he is.
One step closer to trademarking the term Johnny Football. It appears that the Kenneth Reynolds family investment of College Station, Texas, tried to beat Johnny Manziel to trademarking the term, only to have that that request denied. Now opening it up for Johnny Manziel and his J-Man 2 Enterprises to get that trademark. And I think we were talking that it appears that may be a done deal with him getting it the trademark.
Yeah, it's very possible. Listen, all respect to the kid from, the Aggies and what he's accomplished there, and I mean no disrespect, but from an NFL standpoint, it's all fat and no lean so far. We haven't seen anything, so you want to talk about hoggy. Yeah. Right now, the projection of this man, to me, is very hoggy and very fatty. But yes, ostensibly, this is not about his trademarking Johnny Football to be his own personal I am Johnny Football moniker as much as to promote a sports apparel and athletic line. Right now it looks like the door's open. He could probably go that way. I don't know. I think back to the Patriots wanting to, trademark perfect. Once you start going into these kind of funny places, karma does have a way of coming back and get you.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Yeah. Hey, that's completely up to him.
And while we're, just one side topic on, Johnny Football, he's got so much hype coming into the draft and coming into the NFL.
Yeah, where's he going to be?
Last time we saw something like this, it was Tim Tebow.
Oh boy,
coming in, and
you better believe it.
Look where we're at with Tim Tebow.
Yeah, right.
So hopefully his clothing line may work. Hopefully that works out.
That's his backup plan. That might be his forward plan. You might be right. He'll be on the sofa with Tim.
He could be on the fast track out of the NFL.
That's right. Not for long.
All right, and that's our top wacky story.
Some wacky stories
for our April Fool's edition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now it's time to talk some NHL as the season starts to wind down. With our hat trick segment with Uncle Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we don't have Frat House Mike, but that's fine. You'll fill in for me, and we're going to talk a little bit about your team anyway, which would be not the Cardinals in this case, but the Blues. It's a funny thing. Recently, I saw the coach, Hitchcock, was quoted about, listen, what's better to do this time of year? Because in the playoff time, everything changes up. Is it better to have a good power play? Is it better to have a good penalty killing? Do you need some of both? And interestingly, Hitchcock had to say, you can live without a power play and still win hockey games. But you can't survive if you can't kill penalties. Period. End of story. And interestingly, when you look back on the last Stanley Cup, last 3 Stanley Cup winners, including last year's lockout shortened champs, you've got Chicago last year converting on the power play at 11%. Okay? The year before, Los Angeles was converting at 12%. And the prior year, Boston, who won, converted at approximately 11%. Now, what that means is power plays don't necessarily mean you win a Stanley Cup. If you can kill a penalty or otherwise, hey, how about 5-on-5? Absolutely. Best teams, 5-on-5, I'll give you the top 10. How about 8 of the top 10 are in the West? Starting with Boston, Anaheim, Chicago. How about St. Louis, number 4? Los Angeles, that's your top 5, and they're all on the West. These guys are scoring on average 1 goal point, 1.5, 1.4, 1.3 goals for every goal they're giving up. In the East, not so much. Now, that's your specialty teams. How about goaltending? Well, you know, my heart goes out to that Toronto team for one reason, being a former goaltender. I'm wearing Bernie's number because I am a goalie guy. My heart goes out to Jonathan Bernier in Toronto because this guy's done everything he could to give that team some reason to keep winning. And at the break for the Olympics, this team looked like a lock to go postseason. This guy's done everything he can to keep them in, but that team consistently is being outshot. They're taking almost 36 shots against every game and putting up a measly almost 27 per game. There is no way you're going to win a Stanley Cup that way. They are a terrible 5-on-5 team. They do not have a good power play, and it's really a shame because right now they're looking like they're on the verge of another, yet again, complete meltdown going into the postseason, and everybody had hoped for this Toronto team going in, not least of which was that man in the pipes. Now, interestingly, I want to focus on a game that just happened 2 nights ago, and that was between the Philadelphia Flyers and that St. Louis Blues team. To me, this was probably the highlight game of the week. On the box score, Philadelphia did everything they could to maintain an even edge with St. Louis, and if you looked at the box score, you would say, my God, it must have ended up tied. Well, it almost did. Sidekick, they played 65 minutes and had to go to a shootout. There were 3.
Oh, our favorite.
Oh, yeah, you know, I love the gimmick. And of course, unfortunately, the Flyers dropped it 1-0. Mm-hmm. There were 3 key things, 3 key people, put it like that really pivoted in this game. One was Claude Giroux, which is the Flyers captain. Claude Giroux had a very, very good game, except for 3 things that you really need. Number 1, he passed too much. Had a few quality chances, but he passed too much. And as he dished off, it allowed that stifling St. Louis Blues defense to find him and smother him. He couldn't face off. He only carried about 28% of his face-offs, and you're not going to win games that way when you give it up. And his quality chances, while there were 3 or 4, he needs to drive the net. And he really didn't. And to me, that was the difference. On the flip side, Ray Emery in the pipes did everything he could, sort of like Bernier, to keep them going. But I got to shout out 3 names from the St. Louis Blues. TJ Oshie, Mr. America from the Olympics, yep. Let's not forget. TJ Oshie, Kevin Shattenkirk, Jaden Schwartz. These guys were all over the ice all night long. And the fact that Ray Emery kept the Flyers in is remarkable. This guy's done everything he has been asked as a backup. But for him, the Flyers probably would have lost that game at least 4-0. And finally, Ryan Miller. The last piece St. Louis needed is what they acquired at the trade deadline. This guy is absolutely lights out. I picked these guys early in the season to go all the way. He shut out Mike Raffle. He shut out Mark Streit, who had 5 shots on goal. Absolutely, the key right now is goaltending. Keep your penalty kill, keep your power play. If you've got goaltending like this guy right now, it's all the difference. We can look at the leaderboard, and you're not going to be surprised to see St. Louis right there on top. Right. The only thing St. Louis is playing for right now is possibly the President's Trophy, but they're definitely going to postseason, and there's no 2 ways around it.
And I was worried because a couple weeks back, the Flyers and the Blues met.
Right.
And I think it was like 5-3 with the Flyers coming out. I'm like, oh, man. Because you were talking about the Flyers being, at that time, being the hottest team in the NHL. And I'm like, man, did the Blues peak? And
too soon,
right. And now we're as we go into the playoffs, now we're coming down.
Right.
So I was honestly surprised with the outcome of the game the other night, given the previous game.
Well, you're right.
It's it's like they say in football, any given Sunday, any given night,
And St. Louis has too many tools that they're not going to break down and die. And I see them going very deep, if not all the way, I believe, for the Cup. Right now they're at a plateau, as are Boston, as are Tampa Bay. They're kind of plateaued because they know they're in. They're just waiting now. They just want to get through these last 5 games, 6 games,
Sure.
and just start now playing for the real deal. So they do suffer a little malaise there, and they could go a bit flat. On the other side of it, a team like Philadelphia, which is storming and has no reason to be there, they could do exactly what you're saying, and that is they might come up a little too hot, a little too soon, and then in fact in postseason really not have enough, run out of gas or have a bad injury. Final thought would be, a shout out once again to Bernie Perrant, a Hall of Famer. Toronto, the National Hockey League Hall of Fame had a recent overhaul of their selection committee for the Hall of Fame. This doesn't happen that often because you can serve up to 21 years as part of the selection committee. And this year happened to be the year where a lot of selection committee members were due to leave and some switch-ups occurred. And incoming Columbus president John Davidson, a very well-known name and hockey Hall of Famer himself, is coming in. Gregory and Serge Savard are out after serving 21 years. Bobby Clark comes in on the selection committee. Nashville GM, yeah, we know that name. Nashville GM David Poyle, who also was affiliated with Team USA of the Olympics. He comes in. LA Kings great Luc Robitaille, he is in. So we have some very esteemed names coming in to replace in the Hall of Fame. Quick. Who's available this year? Who can be nominated? A couple of quick names for you. Peter Forsberg is available this year. Could go in as a first-time ballot. Dominic Hasek. USA, great Mike Modano, Mark Recchi, Doug Waite, to name a few. There are some that are remaining out there. We mentioned Peter Forsberg. It's hard not to forget another guy in that trade, and that would be Eric Lindros. Eric Lindros still sits out there hoping maybe he could make his way into the Hall of Fame. Dave Andrechuk, Jeremy Roenick. We see him quite often. Claude Lemieux, Theo Fleury. And hopefully they did the right thing with Fred Sherrow in putting him in posthumously this year. I would personally like to see them bring Pat Burns in as a nominee for Hall of Fame. Jack Adams Award 3-time with 3 different teams. Tremendous coach, taken way too young with cancer. He won a cup with the New Jersey Devils and just tremendous 3 very difficult markets that he was a coach in, and I think it's his year. I'd like to see Pat Burns go in as a builder.
Now, with this turnover in the committee, do you think there's going to be a shift at all in what it takes to get in
philosophy? Yeah, no, chances are good that because this is one of the oldest Hall of Fames that we have. So in fact, the criteria is probably not going to change too much. But in that building category and some of that posthumous, a la Fred Sherrow, I think there is a possibility for somebody like a Pat Burns to get consideration where maybe he wouldn't have last year. And I think it'd be a great thing. And at the same time, yeah, I mean, somebody who's on the bubble like. No different than any other sport. In this case, Eric Lindros, he's kind of on the bubble. He did it. He didn't have a great long career. Paul Correa, kind of the same thing, was cut short. Maybe there will be a little forgiveness. So, yeah.
I was going to say, do we maybe see Bobby Clark doing a little lobbying?
Might be a little bit of lobbying.
Trying to get Eric in there, or Recchi,
could possibly be there, yeah. So. I wouldn't be a bit surprised. But that nominations will be announced in June, and this time next November we'll know who's the class of 14.
All right. Good stuff.
Yeah,
that's our hat trick segment. Thanks, Uncle Mark.
Absolutely.
With that, we're now going to move on to our NASCAR segment, brought to us by our friends at Herb FM.
Your engine.
Gotta love it.
So this past weekend we went to Martinsville. We went to the Paperclip. Pretty exciting race.
That was fun.
There was a lot of beating and banging going on.
Rubbing is racing. Come on now.
Where we saw Kurt Busch outlast an angry Brad Keselowski driving
boy, is my face red.
driving what looked to be the Batmobile from the Dark Knight series
I
of
love it, man.
Batman movies.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is Kurt's first win of the season and Stewart Haas Racing's second, with Kevin Harvick getting a win under his belt. Junior Nation showed well with his fourth top 5 out of 6 races.
Outstanding.
He's looking good this season. You know, Junior Nation's riding high.
Absolutely. 6 winners, 6 different poles thus far, too.
Yep.
It's far from a record, but yeah, you see the parity. All at once, the chase really matters. Wins do matter.
So, the leaderboard after 6 races, the top 5 looks like this. We've got, obviously, Junior Nation is back
Dale's
up.
right up there this week.
In first place, followed by Matt Kenseth, Carl Edwards, Jeff Gordon, and Jimmy Johnson. Boom, confetti.
Absolutely, with no wins yet. Boom, confetti.
No wins.
Couple of flat tires. No wins. Is that going to happen in Texas? That's the question. Is
It's a possibility. Our next race is this Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox from Texas Motor Speedway. And with that, we're going to go into my picks.
Awesome. And Uncle Mark needs some help because I ran dead last week. I mean, dead last. I was pushing my car. Upside down and on fire.
Team Blood Pack was there with you.
So we need some good advice.
Sidekick wasn't doing too well either. Like many of the drivers in the Sprint Cup Series, I'm really looking forward to getting back on track with some of these cookie cutter race tracks because it's not been a good couple weeks for me fantasy wise. I'm hanging in, but it's not been one of my better performances.
It's an outrage.
So
it's an outrage.
we're going to Texas this weekend. So let's get to the picks. We're gonna, as you alluded to, we're gonna go with Jimmy Johnson. $28. He's got 3 wins and 5 second place finishes. He's led the most laps with with 579 laps. Okay. Second place, we're going to go with Greg Biffle, 2350.
He's got a couple wins here, I think.
Yep. He's always a safe bet. He's got 11 straight top 12 finishes. We're going to go with Brad Keselowski, $26. He won at Vegas, and sometimes when you run good at Vegas, you run good at Texas. So
it might be a BK day, huh?
And given after what he went through last week, I think he may have a point to prove.
Yeah, he couldn't outlast the outlaw.
He might be our first
repeat?
double.
Yeah, first repeat. Okay.
Like I said, he's $26. And then, of course, we've got the 2 guys down at the bottom.
And who do we like?
We're going to... Well, who can we afford?
Yeah, right.
Who can we afford?
What's left?
We're going to go with Justin Allgaier, $15.50. And the lucky dog goes to, I guess, my favorite lucky dog, Reed Sorensen, $6.75. I'm
an excellent driver.
I keep putting Reed Sorensen in because when you get down to the bottom and you start looking at how many fantasy points drivers have and stuff like that, for $6.75, this guy has literally probably double to triple the number of fantasy points to everybody around him.
Wow, right.
So, he's a good value, he's a good value, and he's getting some points. So he's probably going to finish a race.
Now, listen, I'm just real quick. I mean, you got Kyle Larson in there, right? He's been running strong. We got Austin Dillon in there. I'm just curious, what's your take in Texas with these youngsters?
The problem I have with Kyle Larson is he's too expensive for being a rookie.
Yeah, I agree.
Where,
the valuation is an issue.
Yeah.
But strictly your gut in terms of being a driver. I mean, is this the kind of track that a Kyle Larson or an Austin Dillon can have success on, or are they just going to be outclassed and run midfield?
No, I think you're getting back into the the fast tracks and stuff like that. We know that cookie cutters make up a good portion of the the races and that. So I think you'll see Kyle Larson and Austin Dillon do better.
Okay.
these are guys that you may want to look at, from a strategy perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If you're kind of down towards, the bottom of our leaderboard,
Right.
and that, and you're trying to differentiate yourself
Correct.
from other people,
Right.
you can roll the dice on a Kyle Larson possibly,
Right.
or an Austin Dillon,
Okay.
to try and make up some ground. I'm, not really sold on them, but they're, you can roll the dice with them.
No, you're absolutely right.
I would say they're serviceable drivers, but there's other drivers that are around the same price range that I have more confidence in.
Right, I follow.
So-
Now, interestingly, of course, fantasy, we're still generating our stats based on points, unlike in actual driving. Wins matter more than points because we've seen Harvick drop way back. And this time last year, let's say
Right.
Kevin Harvick would have had a problem with that few points that he's put up, but he's got his win, so he's going for the chase. But for us, points do matter. So
Right.
that's why I asked.
And as we look at the leaderboard, obviously our Frat House team,
Yeah,
Sidekick
Sidekick
Spoilers,
holding
the
strong,
picks.
too.
Yeah,
Holding
we're sitting
strong.
in third.
Yep.
You've got Frat House Mike coming in there fifth. He's
Nicely
sneaking up
done.
there.
Nicely
Sneaking
done.
up there.
Yep.
I'm dropping.
Yeah.
And
You can't see me, dude. I'm on the floor.
I'm right where I want to be.
Yeah,
I can
okay.
pounce from here now.
Right, exactly. Right.
And then we've got technical director Brandon there.
Nice
tonight.
job. He's holding
So,
up in that top 10
and
spot.
your second team's up there in sixth.
Yeah.
So not doing too bad.
Should be fun.
That's it. There's no. Sorry, Jen. Yeah, I don't see you there.
She's on the extended board.
Yeah.
It's below the camera, though.
Yeah, if
I'm down there, too.
If
I'm
you go
down
out to our Facebook page, we've got the whole.
Right, you can see the entire.
Mike
right.
puts out the whole 25
leaderboard.
list,
Yeah, it's all
and
there.
you'll be able to find Jen and Uncle Mark
Right,
and
I
a
was
couple other
like I
people
say, yeah.
on that list. And while we're talking about our Facebook page, our Facebook post of the week was obviously
Last week's picks.
last week's picks with over 100 views.
Nice.
Got in a little late. Sorry.
It's okay. We still, these people, obviously, myself included, are looking forward to.
I had that 14-hour drive back from St. Louis on Saturday, so I was a little tired when I got back.
That's all right. He brought us this very fine beverage,
Yes.
which you can see.
Rumor
right
is if you drink that,
If you drink this beverage-
you know what it's like to be a national league
Well, I don't know
champion.
about you guys, but I need a drink.
there. Yeah,
So,
well,
and that
you
is-
better believe it.
That's our NASCAR segment brought to us by Herb FM. With that, I guess we can kind of roll on out head on over to our website, FratHouseSports.net, where we have a new article up.
Good stuff. Just today.
Yes, a new Major League Baseball article by one of our friends, DC Lumberg.
Absolutely right.
Who you can hear with Jim Williams on his Touch 'Em All podcast on CLW83.com.
See how it all comes around?
It all
comes together.
Yep.
See how that happens?
Nice
It all
little-
comes together. And if
the
you want to
front
know who's going to win the World Series, DC Lumberg will tell you because it's all
Yep.
on there. You got
Yep.
to check it out.
So, head out to Vegas, take his picks and head to Vegas.
Absolutely. And don't forget to vote. Give us a
yes.
vote for who do you like? Who do you like on this week's race in Texas?
There you
That's
go.
on there too.
All righty. I
that
think
it?
that's it. I think that's
Are we
it. I
getting
think I'm
outta
out
here?
of notes.
You know, Mike's over there, and he fell completely
I'm out
asleep.
of,
He
I
can't-
know.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
out of notes.
Yeah, I think
it's time to get out of here.
Yeah.
But I
looking
guess
for the least
in the infamous
possible
words of
amount of responsibility.
one Frat House Mike, keep us real, keep us live, keep us going. I'm out of here. It's over. CLW 83. Then we're going to go
Yeah,
to.
and we're gonna need some 5-hour energy,
Oh, yeah.
and followed by a lot of Budweiser.
There you go.
Aren't they counterproductive?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they augment one another.
Yeah.
Sort of like.
Red Bull and vodka.
Yeah, precisely.
There you go.
All
Me
right.
and Sidekick.
Upper and downers.
Yeah, that's it.
So we got top stories, we got that one, and then we're going to talk a little NFL.
Am I doing 4 minutes of football?
No,
Okay.
we're not doing 4 minutes of football.
We'll do.
It almost could be though.
It almost could be, but it's
Right.
going to be longer than way more than 4 minutes probably.
I'm not going to get into all that.
Nah.
So, all right. So we go from top stories to NFL to Chip
DeSean.
Kelly with DeSean, okay.